This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Watching that video, or we might just watch that intro and think, why is he playing that same thing over and over and over again? Now, I think the tendency for a lot of us, or some of us when playing jazz, I think, is to think that you need to learn a lot of licks. I think actually what's more important is to take one lick and do as much with it as possible within a jazz tune, see if you can place that lick. And I think this is so much of what kind of good jazz improvisation is about controlling these phrases and placing them in different places in a tune and figuring out, you know, where it should start and where it should land. And I think a lot of this is actually more instinct based than it seems. You know, I don't think people are necessarily, when they're improvising at high tempo, thinking about this stuff as much as perhaps we might think they are. It might be this sort of thing that they've practiced, which I think I wish I had been practicing more, because I can see for sure that when I go to improvise jazz, there's a whole bunch of this stuff which you might call jazz language that is missing. Let's just get into it a bit more.
So I've been playing, or trying to play jazz for probably 4 or 5 years now. More than that, since I was about 18. I don't know, I should be better than I am now. Now, the very first thing I just started off doing, I come from like a rock, blues, metal kind of background, was sort of just looking at the real book and trying to play over these tunes and thinking, right, what could I play here? Now, I think a lot of that time was wasted. A lot of time I spent looking at kind of Jody Fisher books and that sort of thing. Some of that was useful, but not entirely. What I think is really beneficial to do is learn actual jazz tunes, and this is where I've seen the most kind of development in my playing, is that being able to actually play some jazz tunes and part of the canon, or whatever you want to call it, the rifle, it has given me the confidence to know that, you know, there are a bunch of jazz tunes that I can actually play without, you know, looking at sheet music or anything. And there are a bunch more tunes that would be sat in the back of my head, and it would just take a little bit of refreshing. So this was a thing that I got from Jonathan Kreisberg, who said there was a summer where he had a teacher who said to him, you need to learn as many jazz tunes as you can. So from that I took the idea, right, I'm going to play one jazz tune per week. Now, that has got me to a certain level of capability or whatever, and I can play in any key and all that sort of stuff to some extent. But what I think is missing, and the more that I do kind of jazz gigs and this sort of stuff, is this kind of idea of jazz language. And what I really mean by jazz language are some jazzy licks. And so you can play certain things and it might sound sort of like you're hinting at jazz, but there are certain things that people do which is a more authentic way of playing jazz, and that I think is missing from some of my playing, and I think might be missing from some of yours if you didn't grow up playing this stuff. And so this video is specifically addressing some of this and how you could go about adding some of this to your playing. And this video in particular, I'm going to be thinking about a certain jazz cliche that I hear quite a lot, and it sounds, you know, super uniform and super common. So yeah, if we were imagining that we were playing over the chord C7 or C altered, our lick starts on the root, then we're going to play from the 10th fret, 9th fret, 9th fret, 9th fret, up to the 11th, and then back down to the 9, 8, 11, 9, down to the 9, down to the 8, down to the 11, down to the 10. So this is just one lick, right? And hopefully it sounds vaguely like something you might hear. So if I was going from G7 to C minor, that's step one, I think. So you find a lick that you want to hear, or that sounds something like you've heard before in the context of jazz, and you think, right, what is that? What's making that work? So I actually wrote this lick, although it's, as I say, it's a bit of a cliche anyway. So I sort of penned it down and thought, right, what would I do? So what we're actually getting, we're starting on our root, playing our third, playing our sharp 5, playing our flat 9, playing our sharp 9, back down to our root, passing the flat 9, then back down. And the other way that you could think about it is maybe you think about it in context of like a C altered scale or C sharp melodic minor. So this lick could either work, so if you've got your C7 or C altered going to F, it could either work for F major or F minor, because we don't land on the third, we land on the fifth. So you could get or so what I was thinking was, wait, we take that as a lick and we think, where could we apply this in context? So if we take the tune All the Things You Are, bearing in mind we're starting on the root of our 5, right? Okay, so we take All the Things You Are, start with F minor, B flat minor, then we have an E flat 7, so that's a 5, so we could use it here to resolve to our A flat major, right? So there's one place where we could use it. And what you want to think about then at the same time is the timing of your lick. You want to count kind of your notes and your starting point. So is where we resolve and happens before we resolve. So we need to 1, 2, 3, like that. So you could think about, if you're playing over 2/5, you'd need to start your lick before you actually hit the 5. If we want to land that, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we get another one here on the D minor, G7 to C7. So because we've only got 2 beats for each of those, we're going to need to approach the D minor, right? So you get 1, 2, 3. So you heard there, I approached for that D minor, I started my lick just before that. So on the 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we get to the C minor. 2, 3, 4, 1. And then we've got to view this over for the B flat, we've got it here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then we got one for this A minor to G. So it's same thing again, because of the harmonic rhythm, we need to approach the A minor to start this lick. So you see, instead of having loads and loads of licks, I think this jazz thing is more important to have like a few key licks which you practice being able to place. And it's more about placing these licks than it is about knowing a ton of them. It's about finding these licks in their relevant homes. And I'm going to put together, I guess, a little set of exercises with this specific lick in mind for all the things you are. So you get this sort of thing, and it's much harder, I find, for me to nail this sort of thing. It's a super difficult concept unless you really, really carefully plan it. But this is essentially what jazz improvising is about. It's about trying to place these familiar phrases inside a complicated kind of harmonic structure, right? Two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for this then part here, it starts to make a little bit more sense. So that is the crux of what I wanted to talk to you about today. I don't know how complicated or otherwise this might have come across. I might have another go at filming it. But that's what I think is a little bit missing from certainly what I used to practice. And you could pick this sort of thing with any sort of lick. And there was another thing that I was experimenting with earlier. This sort of smaller lick, that was another Charlie Parker one. And if you practice fitting these smaller little building blocks together, instead of worrying about these whole massive phrases that go across loads of bars, or that have loads of notes, or super complicated, that's a Charlie Parker lick, but it's not the sort of thing I can actually fit into an improvisation particularly well. But these smaller little kind of cliches, I think, might be a better place for me to start trying to get some of this stuff into my playing. So let's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. C minor now. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. To E flat. Now I need D. And I think that's the sort of thing that I should have been practicing quite a long time ago. Take one tiny phrase and apply it in as many places in a jazz tune as you can, instead of just trying to fluff your way through a piece, or being okay with things that sound roughly correct. Try and nail one short little building block phrase through an entire tune, and in that way, hopefully, that gets you a little bit closer to things that actually sound like jazz. That's what I was doing in the introduction there. Hopefully that makes some sense. I'll try and flash up some stuff on this video which makes it a little bit more clear what I'm talking about, and I'll try and play the intro. That's what I'll put together for Patreon members, that backing track, as well as mapping out clearly where this lick would fit. And that's what I think a lot of jazz is about as well, is identifying where is the right place to play this sort of thing. And this sort of lick, it kind of takes care of the resolution aspect. I don't think what's going through loads of players' heads when they're doing this stuff at fast speed is, all right, I need to resolve the 5 to the 3 here, or I need to take care of the flat 6 here, or whatever. I think quite a lot of what's happening is this sort of muscle memory, this lick-based playing, this language-based playing, which kind of takes care of itself because the licks in themselves follow these jazz cliches, these jazz rules. Don't know if that makes sense. That's what I'm thinking I'm going to practice more of.